Hey everyone, it's Yvonne Emil Elizondo again. So I hope everyone is staying safe and is warm. Those of us that got slammed with the winter storm last week, hope everybody's safe and warm. Anyhow, today's video is focused on what I refer to as previous lives, or what is also known as AKA past lives. Okay, but before we start, I'm going to use a different deck today. Okay, look how beautiful she is. I literally bought this deck because of this artwork. She's just gorgeous. This is Doreen's Virtue Life Purpose. I don't really use it Life Purpose, but I love the artwork. But anyhow, because we're going to focus on, previous lives, I thought it would be a good idea to start off our video with a message. Okay, now from my perspective, I prefer to use the term previous lives, okay, as opposed to past lives. They both mean the same thing. There's nothing wrong with either one or the other. I have just found that when clients are not either knowledgeable or don't feel quite comfortable with more metaphysical, stuff, okay, using the term past lives is a negative trigger sometimes, and so I prefer previous lives. Somehow that just kind of flows more easily. So that's the only reason that I do it. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and pull the card for today. Oh, look at this. I wish I was wearing my glasses because I can't see very well. So now I'm going to have to squint. So it says, or I'm going to have to put it way over there. You're free to do whatever you choose. You're free to do whatever you choose. Look at that. Gorgeous. Okay, this actually is a pretty good card for the theme of the video, because we are talking about freedom, right? Freedom from things, experiences, emotions, hurts, pain, suffering, whatever it may be that have occurred to us in the past. And that's typically has a lot to do with past life or previous life work. But before I go there, I have to tell you that I have been fighting this hair. Like, this hair is very representative of me. Like, it doesn't want to, it's a rebel. Like, it's intentionally rebelling, saying, I am not going to conform. Yeah, that was pretty much me as a child. Ask my mom. Oh, I am not going to conform. That's pretty much me now. Anyways, okay, so back to previous lives. Okay, all right, so before we can have a really good discussion about previous lives, okay, we want to have a foundation of how we end up with previous lives. Okay, so the foundation really starts, we have to start kind of tapping and backing up a little bit. Ancient texts, spiritual texts, okay, a great deal of hypnotherapists at this point are really expressing the idea that there are previous times when we incarnate, or when a soul incarnates, okay, and a soul is the ultimate divine energy, incarnates into a physical reality of some sort, right? So if we have previous lives, that means that we keep coming back for some reason. I don't know why, but we keep coming back. Actually, I do know why, and we're going to talk about it in just a little bit. But so the term reincarnation is an absolute necessity if we're going to be having a discussion about previous or past lives. Okay, so with that theme in mind, reincarnation, then we have to ask, okay, so why do we continuously reincarnate? Okay, do we reincarnate on the earth only in the physical plane? Do we reincarnate on other planets and other universes? All of that is really great discussion, but for today, we are just going to focus on, why do we reincarnate over and over and over and over again, right? Well, ancient teachings, spiritual teachings, some religious texts, and from my own personal experience and having worked, as a psychic intuitive, and having done hypnosis work, hypnotherapy, regressions, and having worked within that community quite a bit, I can tell you that it really comes down to learning our lessons, right? So if the idea is we are going to incarnate into a lifetime, well, what's the purpose? Okay, to experience that reality, to experience that physicalness in on earth anyways. Okay, so it's about picking and choosing lessons that we're going to work through in this lifetime. We have soul groups, okay, or people that incarnate with us to help us learn these lessons. All right, that's the most basic, simple explanation. And so you say, well, when life is great, I'm all about reincarnating again. When life is hard and painful, I am not coming back, right? That's typically the human mentality of, reincarnation and working with previous lives. But the idea is to learn those lessons, go through those challenges, experience those happy times so that there is growth and expansion for our divine energy, also known as the soul. That's really the purpose, from my perspective, anyways. Okay, from a metaphysical perspective, and a lot of the spiritual texts say the same thing. So, if we're here to learn our lessons so that we can grow and expand, that means that sometimes we may not always learn our lessons in a particular lifetime. So, for example, if you learn to ride a bike, right? Hey, if you learned to ride a bike and you got on that bike the first time and didn't wibble wobble or at least have to put your foot down or maybe even fall down, you are amazing. Okay. But most people, it's hard to learn to ride a bike sometimes, especially without training wheels. Okay. That's the same thing with life. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't. So if we don't get it right, if we don't fulfill that entire lesson, guess what? We reincarnate and come back and continue that lesson. Aha. So now when we use past life or previous lives as a form of, healing moving forward, we can now tap into all of those experiences, okay, from a previous life, not all at once, because we're not experiencing them, they're memories. We can pull those memories out as we need to figure out, you know, where we're having a difficult time healing. What is it that we need to learn that maybe we didn't continue or complete learning in a previous life? What pattern or habit am I kind of circling and tapping into and running, into continuously, and how can I move beyond it? So I'll give you an example. I have a client that I work with, and she seems to have an extreme amount of difficulty setting uh, boundaries, healthy boundaries in relationships. Okay. And so when we did some past life regression, we found that with her particular partner, she had experienced 3 previous lives in the same situation. She needed to learn boundaries. He did things that forced her to learn boundaries, and she didn't do it. So she incarnated again and incarnated. And this is her 4th time trying to learn that lesson. Getting somewhere? Ding, ding, ding. Okay. So when we're really honing in on previous life, it's about identifying um, memories or periods of time in those lifetimes that are hidden in the superconscious, because the superconscious holds everything that has ever existed, all of our thoughts, all of our memories, all of our actions. Tapping into it and pushing it up into the subconscious, that's the part of our awareness that doesn't always, it's always listening, always paying attention, but we don't really know. And then pushing those memories up to our conscious awareness so that we can use them to identify what we need to heal, what could work as a gift for us, where we're blocking ourselves, and where we're just missing the mark, basically, which, by the way, is the official translation of sin. But we're not going to go there. Okay. All right. So yes, we can reincarnate. Okay. So we have a previous life, but we can also do work on moving forward to future lives. So where regression looks at the past, progression looks at the future. Kind of cool, huh? That's another video. But for now, we're working on previous lives. So I will give you an example. One of the reasons that I have always been very tapped into wearing like a pendant, or since I was a kid, I have always had to have something here on my chest. And, some of you are like, wow, that's quite enough, right? But it's because from a previous life, I was very highly tapped into the priestesshood, especially during the Knights Templar times, during the Atlantis times, which is way back when. Okay, so I have had these previous lives where I've carried the symbol of my belief system here. And that's what I'm doing again this lifetime. Because if you notice, I'm always wearing some of these. Okay, another example. My daughter, Alex Sophia, when she was when she was born with these huge, what look like bruises. They're called Mongolian spots, and they literally look like bruises. I had to, they're birthmarks basically is what they are, but they were all over her back and they were big, and some were on her arms and some on her chest. I used to have to carry around a notarized letter from her pediatrician, indicating that I didn't beat her. It was, they were birthmarks. Eventually they went away. Okay. But when she was about 3, she came in out of the blue and she told me, Mima, she said, she's calling me Mima. She said, Mima, I know how I died. I was like, okay. And she says, I died because I jumped off a building. And I was like, all right, no, doing what I do, I wasn't so caught off guard, but I thought, okay, that's interesting, right? As she got older, when she was probably about 6, she came home one day and she said, I died jumping from a building because there was a fire. And in my head, I thought, okay, 2-story, 3-story. Then about a year later, she came and she says, I died on a special day and it was in a big city. And I started thinking, and she goes, and the building was very, 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 very tall because it felt like I was flying for a very long time before I died. Does that sound familiar? Tall buildings. Okay. So as we tapped into more of her previous life, she figured out that she was a man in her previous incarnation. Oh, and there go the blowers. Hope it's not too loud. She was in her previous incarnation, she was a man. She was of Middle Eastern descent. She was in her early 20s, mid 20s. She was working at the third from the top floor of one of the twin towers. She doesn't know which one, but she does remember the fire. She does remember pulling her clothes off because it was like her shirt off because it was hot. And she does remember making the decision to fly. So when you put all of those together, the bruises from when she was born, or the bruises, the birthmarks, and then all of the memories she had, and then the past life work that we did, we're pretty confident that in her most previous life, yeah, she was involved in 9/11 to some extent, and she always has had a very deep connection to it. These are just examples of previous work. So what do we do with this information, right? Like how do we promote healing? Well, we can use hypnotherapy for sure, and it's called past life regression or previous life regression. We can use dreams. Dreams also are very connected to our memories in the superconscious. We can use astral travel, which is another video, but it's literally about our energy being semi pulled out of our bodies and us traveling to those different places. Okay. Really what we're doing is that we're lowering the vibe when we're doing hypnotherapy, is that we're getting ourselves into an alpha state. And I think science pretty much says that we spend about 7 hours or so every 24 hours in alpha state. So that means that a lot of the time we are daydreaming. Sometimes we don't even know we're daydreaming. When you're reading a book, you're in the alpha state. When you're meditating, you're in the alpha state. Sometimes when we drive, it's called conscious hypnosis. We don't know how we got to one place or another. You're in the alpha state. When we can get into the alpha state, we can go back into those memories in the superconscious, and we can pull out those patterns that are either helping you, that are not working in your favor, and we can figure out how to release them. 2 more examples. I used to work with an artist. She was absolutely amazing. Loved her, sweet lady. And she suddenly experienced like a 3 or 4 year block of creativity just out of nowhere. I looked at her chart because I use astrology too, right? And I said, okay, this is interesting. We need to do some, previous life work. She came to find out that in a previous life, during the early Renaissance period, she had these amazing natural talents for artistic talents, but because she was a woman in that lifetime, she was not allowed to express her creativity. So what program was embedded in her during that lifetime? Do not use your creativity. Do not use your creativity. You got to hide it. You got to hide it. And eventually in this lifetime, she wasn't able to unblock that. We did some healing work. Okay. And she unblocked and she went on and she creates these beautiful, she's out of San Diego. She creates these beautiful images, especially of the ocean and that kind of scenery. Um, when we're using past lives or previous life, right? It's also about tapping into, for example, relationships where we may have struggles with a certain family member or a certain friend or a certain partner, right? So it's about going back and recognizing, okay, where have I missed the mark before? Okay. I have had plenty of clients that have come in and they have been in each other's lives before, and wow, they're working at it again. So I'm going to be very transparent. I'm going to say, some of you may know my ex-husband, okay? And we get along really well. But the first moment that I saw him, okay, I knew, and I was 13, and first day of high school, I knew that I knew him from somewhere before. I was immediately taken back to a different time where we had worked together, we had lived together, and I knew that in this lifetime, I was going to marry him. Didn't quite realize there was a divorce following that, but okay, I instinctively knew. Deja vu, a sense of knowing that you've been in a certain place, being attracted to certain places. I'm totally attracted to the Celtic, Scottish, castles. That area, Britain for me has always been very in tuned for me. Okay, being attracted to different time periods. Alex Sophia is very tapped into the Aztec time period and the Spartan time period. She swears she was warriors in both of her lifetimes, and I believe it. So this information from the past can come into our awareness now, and we can use it to make this lifetime more learned. I think there's such a word as learned, more productive, more healing can happen. And we can learn where our strengths are. So anyhow, I hope this has been somewhat helpful about, previous lives. I'm not a quantum physicist by any means, excuse me, but time is singular, okay? Singularity, right? So there's a singular point, and I'm not going to tap into all of that, but everything happens at one time. Oh, and that really expands the explanation of previous lives, but we're not going to talk about that today. We're just going to leave it right here. All right, if you have any questions, you want to learn more about your previous life, or if you have something that you think, hey, I've tried to work this problem, I've tried to work this chronic illness, I've tried to work this issue for a very, 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 very long time, and I just can't seem to work through it, previous life or past life regression might absolutely be a pretty good option for you. I figured out a big portion of my chronic illness stemmed from a previous life, and it wasn't pretty. But I'm learning to heal it, and it's getting better every time. All right, all. Please visit me at spiritualessence.com. That's spiritual-essence.com. And I hope you all have a magnificent rest of your day. Bless of you.